We are going to talk in a little bit with State Representative Anna Eskamani from Orlando. She's a Democrat in office. She's the first Iranian American elected to office, to public office in Florida. Has a family impacted by this? We're going to talk about the situation in Iran and where things stand with that. But to set all that up, I want to play for you a little bit of what President Trump said earlier today, where he made the case for these operations. He spoke about this in a Medal of Honor ceremony before it got underway. We brought that to you live on Fox 35 News Plus, and he said that Iran, he called them a, quote, intolerable threat. It's talking about their potential for having a missile program and a nuclear program as well, and said that would have been a danger that the United States would not have been able to tolerate, saying this was the United States' last best chance to strike when it comes to taking out those capabilities of Iran. Here's a little bit of what the president had to say.
The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped. But everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people.
President Trump speaking earlier today from the White House, addressing the situation in Iran and the ongoing strikes and operation that he said could last 4 to 5 weeks or that could go longer. I want to bring in now State Representative Anna Eskamani from Orlando, who joins us live now from Tallahassee via Zoom. State Representative Eskamani, we appreciate you joining us today and taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
So first, I just want to get your reaction to this. I know you have family there, and so I want to kind of go into that. But first, just give me your initial reaction to when we heard the news over the weekend about these strikes.
Well, I don't think it has to be said, but I do want to stress that the Islamic Republic of Iran is a brutal and repressive regime that for 47 years has imprisoned, tortured, silenced, massacred its own people. And I have no sympathy for this regime or for any of the officials or security forces that have been impacted. And they are responsible for the death of hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of Iranians. Even most recently, there were protests in Iran with just tens and thousands of people in multiple cities, and they were brutally cracked down upon by this government. And there were calls for regime change from those protesters, and no doubt those calls will continue. But I think it's also worth noting that as an Iranian American with family in Iran, these are really complex emotions to carry. I think for members of the diaspora, there's joy in the death of Ayatollah Khamenei, this individual that is just the definition of evil. And at the same time, that hope is also layered with fear, uncertainty, and a lot of concern because, to see images of cities you grew up in or you visited or you have families in, and to see them be bombed, it feels closer than it is a separation. And innocent people's lives are at risk. Our service members' lives are at risk. And the whole region is experiencing destabilization because of this. And so we do have to approach it with a sense of caution.
And as you mentioned, you do have family there. What is the situation, and have you been able to get in contact with them?
Well, I appreciate the question. Unfortunately, because of this repressive regime, the internet has been shut down in Iran. So being able to speak to your loved ones through things like WhatsApp and Telegram are very, very difficult, if not impossible. We were able to get into contact with a aunt, my mom's sister, in a different city that was not under bombardment, and through phone, and she was able to call into Tehran. So as of Saturday morning, which was the last update that I've received, my family was safe. but not heard any updates since then. So that's another layer to this dynamic of just not knowing if your family is safe and realizing that Tehran is a very dense city, and they are targeting, homes of security officials, regime officials, police stations, and other types of buildings that are in close proximity to just everyday civilians. And that just makes the situation even more dire in the context of trying to avoid civilian deaths.
You talk about all the complexities of this. How do you think things should be handled moving forward?
Well, as an elected official serving District 42 in the Florida legislature, my responsibility is to the American people and to Floridians. And there are a lot of questions that the American people have that deserve answers. And that's why congressional oversight is an essential piece, especially at this moment. In the last 24 hours, we have heard multiple different statements from President Trump on what comes next. You've heard administrators say this is about regime change, and some say it's not. Some compare it to Venezuela and say that they're okay with the regime being in place, others countering that. So there's a lot of confusion of just what are those next steps. And of course, I think the focus needs to be on de-escalation, on protecting innocent people who are now in harm's way, whether in Iran or across the region right here in the United States, in protecting our service members and ensuring that they have the clarity equal to how high the stakes are right now. This is a very volatile environment and situation. And it's important to remember that the Islamic Republic of Iran is the epitome of a terrorist organization. And they also operate with tentacles throughout the region through proxies, and they're deeply entrenched. They're almost like an amphibian. If you cut off a foot, a new foot grows. And so that concerns me in the context of, what is the timeline for the U.S. forces, because we all know that the American public, and President Trump campaigned on this, but the American public does not want prolonged wars, has been opposed to that. And we need clarity from this administration on what their intentions are and what that means for the American people.
We've also heard President Trump kind of speaking to the Iranian people, saying that essentially the government is going to be theirs to take. It could be their best chance for freedom in generations. What do you make of his message about potential regime change and what we might see from the Iranian people there?
Well, the Iranian people deserve freedom and self-determination. There is a reason why Iranians came to the street to celebrate the death of Ayatollah Khamenei. He is a disliked figure and will be written in the history books as so. And I'm very hopeful that the Iranian people will seize on any opportunity. But it's really important that the future of Iran is dictated by Iranians, not by other governments. And that's why I have been very consistent in lifting up the voices of those in Iran and on advocating for the release of political prisoners and supporting those efforts. But I think it's really important to look at recent historical context when it comes to U.S. involvement. And there is the risk that more extreme, if you can even imagine it, clerics take control and make a bad situation even worse. And so this is why we need congressional oversight. We need to ensure there is as many experts at the table as possible on this, because the environment is very volatile. And I am concerned about innocent people who have already experienced the harm and the death of this regime, will continue to experience that.
State Representative Anna Eskamani, we appreciate your time, and thanks for speaking with us here on Florida Live this afternoon. I think you point out the complexities of the situation, regardless of the political spectrum, where someone lands on that, and whether they support the strikes or not. Our hearts certainly go out to your family, and we appreciate you joining and speaking with us today.
Thank you so much. And to our service members as well. We need them to be as safe as possible.